Newsflash, ladies and gentlemen, the media secretary hasn't got a clue about the biggest media story in the UK this week. Sounds daft, doesn't it? But this is the reality of Labour MP Lisa Nandy in a live television interview today. Of course, the talk of the town this week has been the BBC being exposed for having doctored a clip of Donald Trump to make him look like he was inciting violence. Lisa Nandy, again, just tiptoed around it and said that she doesn't really know too much about it. It's her fucking job, quite frankly. It's her actual job. And even on that, she could have given her views on the ethics of re-editing news footage that had the intention of deceiving viewers. She didn't do any of that. Instead, she directed her outrage towards Ofcom because Nigel Farage appears on GB News. Yes, we're going to get into this, guys, but as always, please do hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And if you haven't already followed my Instagram, please do. It's DanPWD. You've seen the state of this country, now wear the message. Wankir, Stuck Farmer, Liber. Shop the full collection by going down into the link in the description or heading over to BritishDan.com. Let's get into it, guys. So this is the interview, as you can see. And as I said, the UK's media secretary, Lisa Nandy, is asked by BBC Laura Kay for her views on BBC doctoring Trump's speech. I haven't seen the full version of the interview versus the clips that Panorama showed. Have a watch.
Now, right now, and all over this morning's papers, the BBC's under fire for decisions made about its news coverage. One of the particular claims is about what's described as a misleading edit about a Donald Trump speech from the day of the Capitol riots in 2021. I just wonder, have you watched it, and did you think it was misleading?
Well, I have watched it. What I haven't seen is the full version of the interview versus the clips that the Panorama programme showed. But I have discussed the range of issues that that were raised in the email that was leaked to the BBC. It isn't just about the Panorama programme, although that is incredibly serious. There are a series of very serious allegations made, the most serious of which is that there is systemic bias in the way that difficult issues are reported at the BBC. I've spoken to the chairman this week. I am confident that he is treating this with the seriousness that demands. My concern about what is happening at the BBC is twofold. The first concern that I have is that in all of these areas, whether it's Israel, Gaza, whether it's the concerns that were raised this week about the way they report on trans people, or on this issue about President Trump, that what tends to happen at the BBC is that decisions about editorial standards, editorial guidelines, the sort of language that is used in reporting is entirely inconsistent. It doesn't always meet the highest standards, it's not always well thought through, and often it's left to individual journalists or newsreaders to make decisions. That's something that I have discussed at length with the Director General and the Chair, and something that I expect them to grip. But my second concern about the BBC is that increasingly they're operating in a news media environment where news and fact is often blurred with polemic and opinion. And I think that is creating a very, very dangerous environment in this country where people can't trust what they see. And I was very disappointed recently that Ofcom decided not to proceed with proposals to take action on politicians presenting the news. I am looking, as the Culture Secretary, at what we can do as a government to deal with this. We can't continue with a situation where people can't trust what they see.
But you're raising a concern that's not something that happens at the BBC. Politicians do present on other outlets in our sector, but that's not something that happens at the BBC.
Like, shouldn't she have watched this pretty much straight away? It's extraordinary dereliction of duty, to be fair. I mean, the arrogance and the lack of self-awareness knows no bounds with these Labour politicians. So what I get from this, that the BBC journalists, editors and producers deliberately falsifying a narrative is the fault of other news outlets and politicians. I mean, again, this is her job, and she's so obsessed with Ofcom and Nigel Farage appearing on GB News. Okay, so they're at fault for all of this. The main thing here is, well, firstly, she's neglected what she's doing in terms of her actual work and her own duty. But more to the point is, I don't care what The Guardian say. I don't care what the Guardian say, like a proper left-wing publicist. I don't care really how they portray their news. It's super left-wing, and I choose not to read it. I don't care what GB News do. I don't care what Telegraph do. I don't care what The Sun does. I don't care what ITV does. I don't really care what Sky does, etc., etc. The reason why I care about the BBC is because British citizens are forced into paying this shit in terms of the TV license. It's the state. It is the state broadcast, right? It's meant to be completely non-biased and shouldn't be leaning in any political direction, considering that essentially people are forced to pay for it. So I don't give a toss what the Guardian do on one side, what GB News do on the other side. It doesn't matter. But the BBC, if they want to go down that narrative and be a left wing, then fucking scrap the TV deal. Make it a subscription service. Oh no, you won't, because it will go freaking bankrupt. But yeah, more on the point of Lisa Nandy as well. Like, she is so out of touch. I mean, while she did say that she's not really seen the clips, I do believe that is completely irrelevant, despite that being her job. She could have still came out on live television and given her views on the ethics of re-editing the news footage to make the president-elect team to be inciting violence and completely misleading and deceiving viewers, which I find absolutely scandalous. Now, following this, of course, Bev Turner has fired shots back with regard to everything else as they came after sort of GB News as such. And I know some people don't necessarily like it, whether politicians should be giving the news out and whatnot. But again, she's doing her best now to try and get Ofcom to sort of monitor this sort of stuff and try and get involved in bringing GB News down. This is what Bev Turner had to say. Oh my God, Lisa Nandy trying to criticise BBC News but cannot help herself, inadvertently swerving off to talk about GB News. We are the channel that embraces a blend of news and personal opinion in order to create powerful, honest debate on the issues that matter. That is not a fact, a problem at the BBC. Their issues are a broader bias of editorial oversight. We are the channel who have insightful MPs hosting shows. There is a reason we are now the most watched news channel in the UK. People relate to us and we reflect their lives. Do you share my suspicion that the BBC's propagandizing is going to see GB News being punished? Dear Lisa Nandy, do not even think about punishing us for the mistakes of the BBC. The public knows the difference. So yeah, she wants tighter restrictions and will use BBC as a scapegoat. It's only the BBC that are going on about this, to be fair. And they've certainly got a narrative which is absolutely frustrating, but she's certainly out of depth, and it must run deep within the Labour Party because David Lammy seems to be in charge of the jails and justice. He's got hundreds of prisoners roaming free on his watch, despite it being his job. Rachel Reeves, well, she's obviously not looked at the Labour manifesto ahead of the budget. So it's right on cue for Labour. They've all got these roles in certain jobs, and they have no idea what's going on. It's absolutely mental when you think about it that way, isn't it? Absolutely bonkers. But we'll see what happens with them and her pushing Ofcom to stop politicians from presenting and whatnot. But there's certainly bigger issues than MPs appearing on TV shows, you know. It doesn't necessarily matter that much considering, you know, as long as they're getting factual information, in my personal opinion. Now, look, I know some other people will think, no, maybe Nige shouldn't be presenting a show as such. However, I think there's bigger issues like our state broadcast that is doctoring and editing clips of Donald Trump to make him look like he's inciting violence. Absolutely mental, and we're forced to pay for that crap as well. But guys, do let me know your thoughts on that down there in the comments. Hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Peace.